Okay. So guys, if you didn't know, this is actually an 1825 conference creative breakout. And obviously we have a good set of people here. Mostly you guys are on a different time zone, unless somebody's not where I think they are. But so we have on my side,
JD's in Cape Town.
JD's in Cape Town, obviously. He got out right before the borders closed. And so he just thought, you know, why not spend months in Cape Town where it looks like that every day. And so JD's in Cape Town, Strand's in the studio, Dean Usher's at home, and Cass is in America. And so now that we've established where everyone is, JD, you are, if people don't know you, JD, you are a worship leader. You can correct me if I'm wrong at any point or add in. You are a worship leader, commonly known for his One Way Jesus. Sing it. No, I'm kidding. But sing it. No, don't sing it.
Sing it.
Sing it. Okay. But you've been part of United for like years and church since you were a tiny tot. Is that true?
Yes.
Tiny. Yeah. And now you're married, you have 3 kids, you're making fun of my accent, and I get it. But I'm okay with that. I'm secure in my accent. If it's not you, it's Kat. So, yeah. Okay, and then we have Strand, the creative genius. You are a creative producer. You work with Hillsong Channel. You are doing all the things. You also oversee our film and TV in Hillsong.
Yes, that's right.
No small thing.
Wait, what did you say?
You oversee film and TV?
Oh, I mean, we have Ben Field, which is like the head of film and TV.
But he's the real head of TV.
You're like,
don't
play yourself down.
I'm not. I'm really not.
You know him from his work with Vision Sunday, Easter, all the campaigns at like conference time. He's unbelievable. Wow.
So all the ideas come from Strand's mind. And so that's not intimidating. And then we have Dean Usher, who's a creative pastor in Melbourne. Is that right? Yes. I was like, correct. I just thought I got my states wrong for a second. And you are ridiculous. You write the craziest songs. You write with Hillsong Worship. Okay, let me name some of the songs you've written. Oh, praise the name. Oh, wow. Sing it. No, I'm kidding. People might not know.
JD.
No, I'm kidding. And you have written so many songs, and I've literally seen how you work. Your mind is ridiculous and it's creative, and so we are honored to have you here. And then obviously we have the one and only, no one like her, Cassandra Langton. You oversee Hillsong Creative. You are a pastor. You're a preacher, and
pastor. Yes.
Just refrain from making fun of my accent for like the next 30 minutes. Like, I know it's hard. Like
30 minutes.
I'm going to give you that one. And you are ridiculous. What?
Just the Australian accent.
I can't do it, but I almost made fun of your Australian accent the other day because it is so Australian. What did you say?
Back to how amazing Cass is.
Okay, back to Amazing Cass. So you literally connect people like I've never seen. You pastor people like I've never seen. And you have creative ideas that are ridiculous.
Like you've never seen. Yes, good.
Well, I have seen a few. Like Dean's a bit better, but...
That's true. And Strand takes a cake, but JD...
I love it because you often say like, no, I don't do any of this stuff, or I don't know. You often like try and pretend that you don't run the ship, but you do. And so, but you have a lot of awesome, talented people in your ship, but it takes a lot to steer creative.
That is true.
If anybody knows that, it takes a lot to lead and equip and empower creatives, I reckon. And so you're awesome at that. So that being said, we have 4 very important questions. 4 or 5. Okay. If you had to choose, quick.
Yes.
Like quick.
Who? All of us?
All of you. Who would you?
Jumping on top of each other.
Yes, you all have to shout it because
Unmute, Strand. Unmute.
Everyone unmute yourselves. Okay.
Yes.
You have
Okay.
to say,
Even Dean.
choose between. Are you ready?
Do you want us to buzz in with our buzzers that we have?
Where do you have buzzers?
Yeah.
Okay. No. No. Just shout it. Just shout it. Okay.
Oh.
You ready?
You're so boring.
Brian
This is
or
why we're
Bobby?
the creative
Brian or Bobby?
team.
Bobby.
You can't choose.
Katie, go.
You can't choose.
The buzzers don't make sense right now. Brian or Bobby? I see a lot of political.
Somebody has to say Brian, guys. Brian.
I've already said Bobby like 8 times.
I choose Bobby too.
Okay, if you had to choose between Joel or JD.
Oh, JD.
Joel.
JD, that was a test.
get
That
into
was a
trouble.
real test, and I feel like you passed. If you had to choose between coffee and tea,
Coffee.
Oh, coffee.
Strand.
Roybot.
Strand.
you've
No,
lost one,
Strand.
guys.
Who are you?
Delete him. Kick him off the Zoom.
Okay, if you had to
That's
choose
Survivor.
between Darlene and Taya. Tay and Brooke. Situation is Tay and Brooke.
This is a
JD
stitch
is
up.
buzzing. Sweet or savory?
JD, he wants to answer.
Savory.
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 Avery. Chips. Fries.
Really? Fries.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And sweet.
Okay.
And sweet.
What is your? Each one can say it at whatever time.
This is
What
so
your
helpful for people.
Favorite movie. Favorite movie. It's very helpful. It gets. Everyone needs to know this. Favorite
Of
movie
all time.
of all time.
That's a big question.
That's it.
I'll jump in and just say all of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits and everything that's a
Oh.
You
Good.
took Cass's one. Yep.
fantasy.
JD.
Favorite movie would be anything that I film on my phone with this guy.
Ooh.
Yes.
You are in film. Like, how do you not have your cup like on the tip of your tongue?
Go downstairs.
Um,
Anything out of the cupboard, watch anything on the TV, just shut the door and I'll be there.
That is good parenting. That is good.
That
parenting.
is parenting 101.
There's so many lessons
No.
we're learning today. That's the
I
first.
don't know.
Strand, what's your favorite film?
Unashamedly, The Holiday.
Oh,
Are you
wow.
Oh,
Didn't
yeah.
see that coming.
It has, it has it all. That's everything a
Wow.
good movie needs.
Strands are
Romance,
romantic.
comedy, tragedy.
Jack Black. It's
Wow.
unbelievable.
Cass.
Ooh. Okay. It's not my favorite of all time, but I love bedtime stories with Adam Sandler. Something about it is just quirky and fun.
I feel like you're either Adam Sandler fan.
Okay. Otherwise, like Schindler's List,
Wow.
or no, I don't like him normally. Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. What a surprise. Okay, last question. If you had to order takeaways right now and it arrives at your door, what would you order?
Chinese.
Pasta.
Wow.
I feel like Indian tonight.
Yeah, same. I could do it.
You always eat Indian.
I eat it all, but it's cold and rainy in Melbourne. It's Friday night, it's movie night. I would do Indian, 100%.
Okay. So here's the fact of the matter is that was very informative. I feel like
Yeah.
everybody's learned a lot, and now that we're all on the same page, completely same page. So obviously we're in an interesting season. We are COVID-19 hit. Vessel calls it COVIDs, which is really strange. But anyways, COVID-19 hit. Life looks a little bit different. What is the worst habit you have picked up during lockdown? Okay, are you guys still in lockdown? No. So you have a level 3?
No, hold on.
Oh, Melbourne's in lockdown.
Theo's in level 4.
We're doing
Melbourne.
lockdown on another level right now. Yeah, we've been very naughty down here.
You guys.
Sorry.
I heard about that. Everyone was very disappointed. Okay, so
Look, and And we've been locked out of everybody else's state, so we're not allowed to go anywhere.
So you guys are locked into states. Dean's locked into his house.
Yeah.
What is the worst habit you guys have learned or picked up during COVID, or during the kind of the interesting stage of life?
Following news.
Oh,
Just-
good one.
It's just
That's a
stressful,
good one.
and there's nothing to really.
That is a good one. That is-
Mine's the
Wow.
best and the worst all in one. It would be cooking.
Oh,
Oh,
I absolutely love it, but it means
That's
I'm
not
eating
bad.
and I probably
that's
should.
not a bad habit.
It's the best.
it just means you have to do it now.
I do. I got a COVID bod, but that's fine.
I've started eating Nutella out of a jar with a spoon.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
I was going to say that's rock bottom, but it feels good. It doesn't feel rock
That's
bottom.
really good.
It feels like. Strand, what is the
we
worst habit? Yeah.
I was going to say we got bad at having second dinners in the first lockdown. We're not doing it the second lockdown. But we eat with the kids at like 5 p.m. And then like at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, we're starving. So Rach and I, when we're feeling bad, we did Macca's runs. We don't do Macca's runs, but we did some in ISO 1.0. 2.0 would never happen. We're much better.
Okay, I've never had an apple pie at McDonald's before ISO, but now we go regularly and get McDonald's apple pies.
It's not okay, but it's the first thing that happens. Second dinners, random snacks. We started having everyone goes to bed at like 11. We turn up at 11. We start partying at 11. We're like, okay, what can we eat? What can we do? Let's start a movie. I don't even like. It's very bad. Second dinners, not okay. And cooking.
No.
And cooking. Okay, so obviously there are some good things. There's some bad things. Why? Have you guys felt it a bit tough to be creative during the season, or has it been like really, really easy?
Should I start?
Yes. Boss.
Okay. Thank you. I feel, thank you. I feel like problems and challenges and obstacles force you to be creative and rethink stuff. And so I would say for all of us, as soon as COVID hit, as soon as stuff happened, it forces you into a new way of thinking. And so you're constantly spending a lot of time and energy and effort reimagining and innovating everything that you do. I think that the byproduct of that is that you end up exhausted because you're constantly in your head trying to create new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking, new ways of telling stories, new ways of navigating church, new ways of like everything.
Right.
And then I think the exhaustion then stops you from creating.
Right.
So I think we've gone in ebbs and flows.
Yeah, that's
would
good.
be me from big picture. But then Dino and Strand would probably have some different answers in terms of songwriting and filmmaking and what they've got in their hands.
I'll jump in on songwriting for sure. I'd say also from a team leadership point of view, it has been difficult in Melbourne, rallying a team of hundreds of people. And we have been recording every week, church and everything. So we've had to get really creative in what our team put their hand to. And like Cass said, famous word pivot has been a real thing happening down here. But for me personally with songwriting, it's been surprising how fruitful this has been and how, I mean, I'm absolutely in love with Zoom like we all are. The whole world has gone Zoom bonanza. It's unbelievable. But we've been writing. So some of my most favorite people to write with live in different countries and different states. And I've had the opportunity because everyone's just jumped on Zoom and been writing to write with my favorite people who it's really easy and cohesive with. And I've written more than I have in my entire life in lockdown/lockup. So it's fascinating.
I think for me, in terms of like film creating and everything creative that we do, I've come to realize how much of that springboards off community. Like when you're in groups, when you're, working towards a conference together or just in meetings together or just in hallways, that even the vibe of like jokes and whatever, or if you're focusing on a project, like all of that springboards out of that usually. And now we have to like I'm not an ideas guy, despite all the accolades in the beginning. I rely on a lot of ideas from the other team or from, team members and whatever. And then basically taking that on board, and that sparks something in me, and then I can kind of, jump back and forth now. And it's just, I don't necessarily have that unless I do like a Zoom call or unless I purposefully do that. And so it doesn't come naturally anymore. So it's a lot more kind of effortsome in that sense.
JD, talk about leading worship in this season, as in, because that's your creative outlet, right?
Yeah, I think like, well, just to add on what all these guys have said, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that creativity is this like airy, weird thing that just pops out of nowhere into the sky. But I think it's much more based on a decision that I'm going to be creative, or making decisions that allow for creativity. Like I think what Cass said, if that be rest, or if that be intentionally, putting your hand to the work and the discipline of creativity. But when it comes to leading worship, I remember the first time I had to lead like live via the streams and all the rest of it. And we've done recordings and whatnot. And I remember thinking, I don't know how to do this, or what have I got to do? And there's obviously no one in the actual room. But what I found is that the most important things that I think when it comes to leading worship haven't changed in the slightest. Our worship is a response to this incredible God that we serve, who's given us the breath in our lungs. So out of that, we worship. And sometimes that's with music. Sometimes that's with our creativity. Sometimes that's with whatever God's got us to do in the moment that we're in. And so I just think that more than ever, of course, there's the outer things that we do when we lead worship, that are being aware of the platform you're on, or the situation, or the room, or the people, and all that kind of things. But I think, like a lot of things in this season, it's actually been about reinforcing the foundations of why we do what we do. And I think making sure that, like, focusing on that has helped us, or it's helped me kind of keep stepping forward in what God's giving us to do each day in this season.
Wow, that's amazing. It's such good perspectives, because I mean, if you think about it, like each of you almost have a different kind of role in the season. Like JD, you're obviously worshiping online, but then Strand, you have to create tons of elements and bring it all together. And it relies heavily on those elements at the moment. There's there's nothing else, at church life. Normally we had to go like, okay, what are we pushing now? And what are the numbers? And is the building ready? And now it's completely different. And Dean, the same with you. But Cass, I was wondering, if you let yourself go there with your your face. I can't take you seriously. Okay. If you let yourself go there, during this season, and you can let your soul get a little bit disturbed, like a little bit trouble, like there's quite a bit going on. And I think if you don't watch yourself, you could actually live in a place of constant turmoil, especially like Sebastian said about like constantly looking at news. There's a lot of hurt, a lot of pain going on, a lot of conversation, a lot of big issues. No small time things are happening right now. And so how do you still create space to have joy and, a space to create and let yourself dream a bit when there's quite a heaviness in this moment and season, if you agree?
I think there's so much going on at the moment. You would be right in the middle of it. Like, COVID's one thing, but then there is the whole racial injustice that is happening on the earth at the moment. There are just so many things. Every time you turn around, this week, Beirut and the explosions, it just seems like we are in a state of turmoil. I guess I've been trying to work out how to process it, because I end up face to face with so many of our creatives. And I spoke at team night last night around this sort of thought, actually, because I keep going, this can't be the first time this has happened. Like, it's a unique year for all of us, but this has happened before. Like the Spanish flu, it happened. But then in the Bible, you start reading Habakkuk, and in like 605 BC, you find a prophet who spends the first 2 chapters of the 3-chapter book going, God, what the heck has happened on the earth? And he starts going, everything's gone wrong. Evil's prospering. We're being overtaken by people. There's social, economic upheaval. There's all these things going wrong. And he starts talking even about his own anxiety, that he's having panic attacks and he can feel his heart and his chest beating. And he starts to articulate a year kind of like what we've found ourselves in, where he can't do anything to change it. And he's found himself with this normal that's outside of his control. And he starts crying out. He goes like, how long, oh Lord, how long is this going to go on for? And I feel like that's been the conversations that I've had with all of our team. Like, how long till Black Lives Matter? How long are we going to have to wear masks for? How long are we going to be in lockdown for? How long am I going to feel upside down and all conflicted on my inside? How long till we get back together again? How long till we serve? How long till I actually get food on supermarket shelves? And where it gets to in Habakkuk is he stops it all. And he literally begins to say to Judah, you got to remember who you are. You were always called to be a people of praise. And he calls them back to remember who they were And I feel like his story teaches us that we have to remind ourselves that we are a people of praise, that God has set us apart for his glory. And we remind ourselves of that. And like for the creative community, I think remind ourselves that we sing, that we actually honor God with everything that's in our hands, and that there is triumph as God's delivering us. I think the second thing he teaches us is that we have to persevere in waiting, like that there's actually seasons run their course. And so right now we all find ourselves in a pretty interesting place. But if you want to create, you want to do that sort of stuff, then you have to let the season run its course. You've got to actually be patient and let God bring you through the other end. And I think for creatives more than anybody, this season brings turmoil on the inside of you. You get restless, you get complacent, you get mediocre, you kind of think, maybe I should uproot. And I think actually we've got to lean into God and just do the time well. And then the best bit of the whole thing is that Habakkuk says, though the fig tree doesn't blossom, though there's nothing on the vine, though there's no sheep in the pasture, I'm going to rejoice in God. And I think for all of us creative people, the best place to create from is knowledge of who God is, not his situation or the circumstances or even what he's done for us in the past, but who he is. And as we remind ourselves of who he is, then there's something to create from, rather than, oh, he healed me, he gave me a job, he blessed me, he did that stuff. It's actually, he is God and he is worthy of all praise and all creativity, full stop. So I think it can be a disturbing season, but it can actually be the best season if we ground ourselves in good things.
Oof.
Amen.
That is so good,
Amen.
Cass.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Dean.
Keep going. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, great.
Tell us again. No.
So anyway, that's what I think.
It's so good. It is true.
Nope.
Like, I love the fact that you spoke about, we don't really create. Yeah, we create about from who God is. Oh, so good. Like if he doesn't, yeah, no, just good. Strand, you spoke about a lot of things that you've been working on. I mean, this season's pretty open-ended. We actually speak about our conference in terms of, like, this is the first time maybe that it's a bit like limitless in a sense. Like it could go anywhere, but at the same time you're constricted, but you almost have to look at it as new opportunities. What new opportunities and, you know, new ideas have you found in this season?
I think, like you're saying, like with online especially, there's this whole new world kind of opening of like, it's limitless, but then it's easy to take that on board and going, we're reaching the whole world. And then you look at the numbers and maybe you're reaching a lot less than you think. And so I think in that, you just have to find the boundaries and be a little bit, have to be a little bit, we're oftentimes part of a very yes-saying culture going, this is awesome, the best thing I've ever seen. And it can be a little bit of a, an echo chamber, if you will. And so I think you have to look at the numbers and look critically in order to move forward and go, hey, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And acknowledge that even though maybe technically we're very good at live events, we're not maybe as good automatically by like doing online stuff. We have to go, okay, when do people drop out? What's, you know, and not in order to make it, you know, a show or entertainment, like we still want people to connect. But we all know that creativity is something that pulls people in and that opens hearts, right? So we want to make sure that we do that with excellence. And so the numbers can actually be really helpful in that sense.
I was laughing because you said
I
we're
feel like
so
in
great
this
at
season,
events.
Strand keeps bringing ideas all the time that we never use to. So like, I feel like he can see the limitlessness of this season and just keeps tabling stuff, even though we go, oh, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. And I reckon that's amazing.
It's true though, because like it actually does open a whole new world and a different way of thinking. I think, like I said in the beginning, like we used to think very one way. Like you keep saying we're really good at events, and we were laughing about one way. JD, sing it. Okay. But now we've had to, Cass, here's a word for you, pivot. And so our thinking has to change, because otherwise we're going to be left behind. Like, and we almost like, it used to be our strength. We go like, we know how to set an atmosphere, we know how to, and now we're creating an atmosphere that someone needs to translate online, and it's a whole different ball game. Like, do we actually speak not to the camera, but through the camera? And so it's like you said, if we don't change, you know, our perspectives, the way we think, I think you can feel pretty stuck. But I love what you said. about, I love that Cass keeps saying that you bring new ideas, but you don't want to speak about it. But Cass is like, no, he's full of ideas.
It's really the
He's
same
so
idea
humble.
over and over. She just hasn't noticed it.
Sean actually has one idea that he keeps bringing, and Cass goes, no, and then he brings it the next week, just packaged differently. She's like,
I reckon the challenge for all of us in this season is to not think that church is only online, that we actually are the church. And so the creative, the desire to be creative actually has to be so much broader than just a service that you stream on a Sunday. Like if we're the church and we're meeting in homes and we're at home, then how am I the church in my neighborhood? How am I the church in my community? How am I creatively reaching people for Jesus? Like, I think that's a much more exciting
guys, tell us
conversation
what
even
you've
than the
been doing
online
with your
one.
neighbors. Tell us.
No,
about No, tell us.
I can't.
Why?
No, because it doesn't matter.
I want to know.
Ask JD about.
Okay, I'll tell you. Cass has been writing letters to her neighbors because she's like, well, now everything's pretty digital. Or like letters to a lot of people, not just your neighbors. And I think that's pretty awesome because it's creative. It's a creative way of problem solving. It's a solution that, you know, they are definitely not going to expect a letter, but who writes letters these days? Cass does. And
Look,
people love it.
I actually just go on a Sunday. No,
people love it.
Going, on a Sunday, my neighbours should know that there's a church in their neighbourhood. So we've done all sorts of random things, like we've delivered bread and fruit and cards and stuff.
Yeah.
I want them to know that on Sunday there's a church.
Oh my gosh.
That meets in their street.
Amazing.
Okay. JD, is there anything that you've, like, new things you've revalued? Revalued. Yes, that is a word. Oh my gosh. Reevaluated.
Evaluated.
That's the word. English is my first language. No, I'm kidding. Is there anything that you've reevaluated in your life? Like things that you've actually, you thought were important, but now you've actually gone, okay, this is really important. Why is Cass laughing like that? I don't understand.
I don't know. We'd probably, because we had breakfast this morning and talked about this, but I would say everything. And I've absolutely loved it. It's probably been, you know, this is one of the, I keep describing it's unwanted, unexpected season. And we said it's more than just even COVID. And so there's so much in that, but that is disappointing and unfortunate. But at the same time, I can just see already God, how he is and can continually to use this situation. I think one of the biggest things for me has been just kind of reevaluating everything and what's really important, and just understanding at the end of the day, you know, stripping it all back, and it's highlighting things that I think that, you know, maybe I was focusing on, that we were doing, that, you know, had its importance, but not in comparison to who God is and the heart of what he's called us to do. And I kind of love, for me always, because I'm a pretty simple kind of guy and also would like the short version or the condensed version, you know, often through the Gospels when people are quizzing Jesus about what's the most important thing, what's the greatest commandment, this, and he'll often say, it's in different books throughout the Bible that say, you know, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And that those two things sum up all of the law and all of the prophets. And I just think about that's kind of basically saying, hey, if you don't do this, you're not doing anything. And that's why I love, as a church, we've always said Hillsong Church is about God and people. It's about loving God and it's about loving people. And I just think that, again, that is what our desire is to do, is to love God. And that's what worship is all about. And again, I'm not talking about music or songs. It's the life that we live unto God. And so it's loving God and thinking about others. And I just think that it's been really good, I think, in all the other practical ways as well as what's important. But I just think coming back to that, it has been really helpful, because when you do go straight to God, and I'll add this in, and I'm kind of talking about, probably for me, I think that in life, and especially in this season, we can run away or we can hide. But I think the most important thing is like that we run to God and we hide in God, not in other people or other things or other images or all the rest of it. And I just love that we serve a God who is like, and through the psalmist, I've been living in Psalm 34, where it talks about never hide your feelings from God. You know, when we're anxious, he can free us. And even going back in Psalm 31, talks about that, God, you're my mountain God. I hide in you, you're my protector. And I just think that we want to fix everything and we go to all the wrong places. Like, let's just go to God first and understand that God accepts us the way that we are, not the way that we kind of portray that we are to everybody else, that we've got it all together. But no, I just think that's where our strength is going to come from. That's where our spirit is renewed. And like Cass was saying, that's how Cass, I think, what I can see is how she's always joyful, always hopeful, even though the reality, I know what's on her plate and what she's dealing with, or even just a smidgen of that. And so I just think it's so important for us just to go back to God and again understand that, like Cass was saying, this isn't like God's not shocked and surprised, and this is not the, it's, so we can just, that's where our strength comes from. Anyway, I'll shut up. I'm going to mute myself just for fun.
When you mute yourself, just in case. Wow, that was insane. I love it. Like you said, I feel like in this season, everything kind of gets stripped back. So pretty much the one thing remains. And I've learned in this season that maybe how big God is, which we don't think like that would be the thing, but I've literally realized like God is God. And it's like you said, JD, he isn't surprised. It's not like he went, wait, what? And I think for a second we go, how is church going to go on? How is my life going to go on? How is anybody going to go on? How, God, like, have you seen what's happening? And it's like Cass also said, like, it in history, this has happened before. It just hasn't happened in our lifetime. And so I think, it's also like we said, we're not surprised that a lot of stuff has come up. Like, that kind of saying when everything's still, like your heart gets illuminated. And I feel like in society, we're still. And so societal issues and our heart gets illuminated. But it's kind of like JD, like you said, but, you can either kind of crumble at this time, like kind of like self-isolate. Actually, a lot of people that I know actually have just isolated themselves and have no contact with anybody, and a lot of people have thrived. But Dean, I loved what you said in terms of like you've actually really thrived in the season. You've written more than anything, and I know probably a lot of songwriters have not written anything because they don't have the words, they don't know what to do, they're confused. Can you tell us about, and then if you want to play a song, like that's up to you, like that's totally up to you, but
I did have a pink guitar that I reckon you could.
Yeah.
that is Cass's dream that would happen as well.
Always.
You should always have some
you can
kind
sing
of.
without a guitar. I'm happy. You can say
What? No way.
We'll see if we get there.
Yeah.
Yes. I've kind of got two thoughts. I think JD mentioned this earlier, what this year's meant for me before we get to the creative outlet side of it and fruitfulness. It's been a wild year for me. I broke my neck on January 1 and I was in a neck brace before there was any lockdown. That's just a side thing. So I feel like I've been in isolation every single day of 2020, a new decade.
You started early, actually.
And I've learned a lot of things. Sorry?
You started early with your...
Yeah, it started early.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm learning and why I feel like I'm creating is because I've got something to say again. And I think when you say stillness, and JD mentioned it earlier, it's kind of foundational time. And when we're all at home and there's nothing else to do and it's shaking, you go back to the fundamentals, and we're not doing church. And I think for me this year, I've been a lot more focused on who I'm becoming and trying to lead my team in who we're becoming more than what we're producing or achieving. And I think in creative team and the pace of society and what's happening in the world right now, we get frantic and it's all about this do. And I think I got to the point maybe last year where what I was doing was overshadowing who I was becoming. And that's scary because we are Christians before we're creative. And I feel like we have something to say in society right now. When everything's shaking, we've actually got a hope. We've actually got substance about us. We've got a purpose and we've got a calling. And so I think for me, like this has been so foundational for me, getting back to spiritual disciplines, like as the number one priority, not as a side thing that we do on the way to church, which is the thing. No, like the thing is Jesus, becoming like Jesus. And so for me, out of that, I'm like, well, I've got a lot to say. And because I feel like I've got to I once heard a songwriter say, you don't write because you want to say something, you write because you have something to say. I think a lot of creatives, we get it wrong. We go fishing, we try and chase what is the thing that I want to say, but I don't know who I am. My foundations are shook. I don't know what I have to say as a believer to a world that is desperate for answers. But when you get back to the foundations, you go, I know who I am, whether I'm rostered on Sunday or not. I know what I'm about. I've got something to say in the season. And when you're in that place, I think you can create. And I've really enjoyed it. So I've been writing songs for people, not just for church, not just like chasing the anthem for church. I've been just writing a song for a friend who started a new business a week before COVID hit. And he's been in that faith space. So I wrote a song for him, and I wrote a song for another friend. I wrote a song for myself, and no one will ever hear them. I wrote a song out of Psalm 23. The Lord makes you lay down. I love that because we're too stupid to do it ourselves. And so that's what Louis Giglio said at conference last night.
Is that the actual lyric of the song?
Yeah, no, that is not. But it should be.
I hope that's
and
the name
so,
or something.
I think when you're passionate and when you find revelation and God's always speaking, then you can create from that. But if you're just chasing the wind, it's just this elusive creativity thing that I don't think is the best way to go about it. That's a long answer to your question.
That's a great answer. Look, we have a couple minutes left, but I just thought I'd leave kind of, well, anyone can comment on this, but they always say like a leader can't lead where they've never been. You can't confidently lead, and obviously safe to say no one's ever been in this situation, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe that statement's different in this case, because I feel like we're forced to adapt, we're forced to think differently, we're forced to create, we're forced to hopefully think positively with I don't know, just in a different way. Does anyone have anything to say about that, or leadership wise? Obviously, Cass, no, I'm kidding. We have a couple minutes.
My first thought is, of course, none of us have ever kind of been here, but I think what our job is to lead people to Jesus, and I think that is the most important thing, and that's somewhere that I think that we can go, and hopefully we have been, and that I wholeheartedly believe in the truth of the Word of God, that it has everything in it that we need. And I was even just thinking again today how it's like people would die. Like, imagine if you got 5 minutes where you could hear God talk to you, like specifically, directly, like what people would do, how much people would, pay, and all the rest of it. But we have that opportunity every second of the day through the Word of God. And I think I think what we need to do is keep focusing on that, leading people back to God, leading people back to Jesus, and understanding that God has paved the way through his word. It talks about again in Psalms that his word, it's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And so I just think at the moment, you only need a light when it's super dark and you can't see. And that's what kind of it feels like right now. And so I just think that should be our guide. That should be that rock. That should be our foundation to help us.
I love it. I love
that. Because yesterday, hold on, can I go? At Sisterhood yesterday, I told the girls about glowworms. Do you know like how there's glowworms in dark caves, and apparently there are like jellyfish that glow in the dark in the sea, and there's this stuff called phosphorescence that is like, it's like a fungus that grows on top. In all these dark places, God has made nature glow, and apparently this is a cool thing. Humans also have a glow in the dark element where we can't see it with our eyes, but there's something in us that glows in the dark. And it says in Isaiah 43, I've set treasure for you in hidden places, secrets in the dark, that you might know that I am the Lord your God that calls you by name. And I feel like the darker it is, the more God hides things for us to find in those places, that we would know who he is and know that he knows us. And so I feel like, I get that we've never been in this season before, but our job as leaders is to do exactly what JD says, is to anchor ourselves to God, harness ourselves to him, and then let him lead us through the dark and let us lead him to his light. Because he is leading us, and then we actually just turn around and tell people to follow as we're following him.
My gosh, I love it.
Can I add
We
one?
don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Well, that's literally what I was about to say, Cass, is I was joking with JD before this because Q&A in this pandemic is like, who has answers right now and who wants to think that they have the answers? But what I think is so healthy for the leaders out there and for ourselves is that we're asking healthy questions in healthy spaces. And I love that we can do that, and that we're asking the questions of racial injustice. We're asking, what does the church have to say in this pandemic? We're asking the right questions. And there's a lot of people out there who might be like, I don't know what way's up right now, but hey, get yourself in a place where you can have healthy conversation with healthy mentors, and not just vent online or whatever. Like, have the robust conversation. Martin Luther used to have table talks. He used to have people around his table, and that's where theology was wrestled out. I just think that's a healthy picture of the Christian community. It's okay to not be okay right now and have questions, but ask them in the right safe spaces.
I love that.
100%. Wow, guys, okay, that is all the time we have left, but you guys have brought such gold, and I'm actually can't wait to rewatch this because I feel like this is what we need. And thank you so much for taking time all the way from okay, well, JD's here, so you took the time, but you didn't travel far.